Hello. Welcome once again to the Free Bin, the Toledo, Oregon Public Library's podcast. I'm Harrison.
And I'm Cindy.
And we've got a very interesting topic for you today. It's a history story.
Ooh.
It's a mummy story.
Ooh, I like mummies.
And what makes it relevant to us as a library is that it is a records story.
Oh, cool.
Ancient records. And it's an interesting contradiction. I don't want to give too much away, but
okay.
I find it really fascinating.
All right.
Before we get into the topic, we should talk about what we've got coming up, what we've got going on right now.
Right. So let's see. We have a lot going on. We're gearing up for summer reading. Mm-hmm. Registration starts on June 3rd, which is next week. You come in, sign up, grab your reading log, read 10 books, come back, get your t-shirt or your bag. Mm-hmm. Adults, from kids to adults. And there's lots of programs going on. Our first program is June 16th, I think. But you'll get all that information when you sign up.
Yeah. And our Lego Club just wrapped up. They had their last session. The city they created together is on display in our entryway, our foyer.
It's very cool. They did some really cool techniques with the Legos. I thought that was great.
Yeah. And Talibius.
Yes.
Our much anticipated, for me anyway, I've been clicking away on this for a long time.
Yes.
Arcade cabinet built by Alec Weber, a local Eagle Scout as a project, and our public works department pitched in a lot and really helped up put the finishing touches, make some minor tweaks and some major quality of life improvements for access on that. That's really great. And then I spent some time crouching under the thing, wiring it all in. So we have a software collection of vintage arcade software on a 2-player cabinet. It's
very cool, and it's been busy.
It has been busy.
Every time I look up, there's somebody over there almost, it seems like, playing a game or looking at it or trying to figure out. It's easy to use. Even I can figure it out, and that's saying a lot. It's really a lot of fun. Don't be afraid to ask us for help if you can't figure it out. Don't be afraid to just come in and try it. And I think arcade rules kind of apply here. So if you want a game but somebody is playing, you can go and just say, hey, I'd like the next game, and we're all going to be civil about it. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully you can come in and really enjoy it. There's a lot of fun games. There's Joust and Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man. And speaking of the Pac-Mans,
we have a tournament underway.
That's right.
It's a long-running play-as-you-come tournament. So scoring period is open now, yesterday. It runs until June 11th. And it's a concurrent Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man high score contest. So you can come in during any open hours during that time. If you get a score, just leave the game up. Don't start a new one. Don't exit. Flag down a staff member and we'll write down your score. You can try as many times as you want. And then on June 12th, Thursday at noon, we're going to have our grand opening for Talibius and of our mural that Veta Bactina did surrounding the arcade cabinet on that wall in our teen area. So we're going to celebrate all that work that went into it. And of course, Denise, before her very recent retirement, spearheaded that whole renovation of the creation of that new teen area. So we're just going to have a little gathering, a little get together, and announce the winners of those tournaments at the event as well.
Can we say who has high score currently?
Currently, I think she'll be okay with it. Currently, Denise, who is no longer a City of Toledo employee, so she can do this.
She has the high score.
She has this high score, so she set the first score to beat there. And so come on down and show us what you got. And we'll have fabulous prizes for
right. We don't know what they are yet, but we'll have
winner.
them.
Oh no, it's all very carefully planned.
That's right.
Plans within plans.
That's right. No, we will have prizes, and it will be fun. And I think if you, it's for all ages. You know, I mean, you have to be tall enough to see that to be there. But if you're, I think it's kind of tweens and teens and adults, and I've seen all ages over there, and seen some pretty. I think the comments have all been so positive. Oh man, I remember that game when I was a kid, you know, and that's what we want to bring back is that nostalgia, but we want to introduce those early games to our kids now who are so familiar with video games that look like movies and look like, you know, there's such a difference. And these are the ones that we grew up on.
Yeah. Nowadays, games make you cry with deep emotional stories.
Right.
When we were younger, games made you cry in rage and frustration.
Not because the story's good, you know. The little guy runs out there on his horse, jousts, kills somebody. You know, I mean, it was a much simpler time.
So Cindy brought the beverage. I think it's appropriate because today we are discussing a mummy story, and I have a mummy sound effect.
Oh,
that's
cool.
That's a callback to a long ago episode. So that's our mummy sound. I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. Do you remember a few years ago there was that kind of internet meme around the news story where they found a black sarcophagus in Alexandria, and they opened it and it had that red juice inside, and somebody made like a joke change.org petition to allow them to drink the bone juice from the sarcophagus.
That's horrific.
I've got
the internet.
I don't have the petition, but I have a picture of the red
black
red
mystery
juice.
Sarcophagus was opened, and now people want to drink its bone juice. You know,
tell us what you brought, Cindy.
Humanity will never ever be the same. That's insane. Speaking of red juice,
this is a much better red juice.
This is Faygo. It's genuine Faygo, and it is the pineapple watermelon flavor. This is available at our local grocery store in the big 23 ounce, 20, not 24,
not 24,
not 20.
That would be
23
crazy.
ounce. That's interesting. Sugar. Oh, golly. Well, I'm not going to tell you how much until you're going to taste it, and then you're going to guess
almost
how
enough
much sugar is in this. How many grams of sugar? I think it's the highest we've ever had. I don't know if this is carbonated. It looks like it might be.
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful color. It's one of my favorite colors. It's almost like a hot pink with, and it smells good. Ooh, you can smell, it smells like watermelon gummies. The cheap kind. Nothing fancy for me. The watermelon gummies. Oh, okay. Ready? Oh,
yeah.
That's good.
That is good.
Faygo, you've made your mark with. I'm gonna. Okay, guess how many grams of sugar?
63.
72. Holy cow!
Wow. And Faygo sometimes has other sweeteners besides just the sugar, doesn't it? Like sometimes they'll cram in a little sucralose with the sugar. Really.
Well, it includes 72 grams added sugars. That's 145% of your needs, apparently. No protein, no fat, 65 milligrams of sodium. Oh, my goodness. But, you know, its calorie count is just about the same as everybody else. You know, maybe a little more. It is 23 ounces.
There you go.
You know. Anyway, it's not bad, guys. And over ice, it would be really good.
Oh, yeah.
Not a ton of carbonation either.
No. Yeah, that's good.
Here, let me pour you some more because
I'll take some more.
We don't want to use up our 20. We want to use up our 23.
Thank you. Don't want to waste any of those 23 ounces.
I'm going to take this home and hype up my grandkids.
Yeah. All right. Now that we've had our red juice, thank you, Cindy.
Yep.
I'm going to launch into our story. And I actually kind of wrote a script for this one. So we're departing from our usual procedure, where usually Cindy just feeds me peanut butter, so it seems like I'm talking, as we've discussed.
That's his nice way of saying Cindy talks all the time on the podcast. Thank you very much. I am going to interject my questions in a sophisticated manner.
Yes, or a non-sophisticated manner.
Yeah, whatever.
However, any manner.
And hit the random mummy button.
Hit the mummy button. So maybe I should do the callback to our mummy. Here, I'll give you the headphones.
Oh, I got to hear this.
Yeah, I'll do it a few more times.
Mummy's sad.
There was a project years ago to reconstruct the vocal cords of a priest whose body they found and try to capture the timbre of his voice. So they I think they 3D printed his larynx and then published that noise as an example of what his voice sounded like. And again, it became a bit of a
welcome to my church.
Amun-Ra. All hail Amun-Ra.
Okay, we gotta move on. You're not gonna read your script in that voice.
I am not. So anyway, that's why that's our mummy noise.
All right.
So a little content warning before I get started.
Okay.
This episode is going to deal with death and dying, as well as some pretty unpleasant ancient judiciary proceedings.
Nice.
We're
nothing if not controversial.
Yes. So,
forewarned.
First, some context.
Okay.
Ancient Egyptian civilization, what would have been known in its own time and language as Kemet, did a pretty good job of documenting itself for posterity. Plenty of records survive from this time on media ranging from papyrus to stone to paintings, and we can check these accounts against the physical archaeological record as well as other written accounts from neighboring civilizations.
Got it.
Contrast this with, say, my own ancient ancestors in Northern Europe and Britain, who had no written language before the Romans arrived to write their own skewed and unsympathetic accounts of what we were up to. Did we sacrifice people to Wotan and a wicker man to make the turnips come in? Probably not. But maybe. Who didn't? Leave us alone.
Right.
The turnips
ancient history
turned out great.
That's right.
So no such problem with the ancient Egyptian civilization.
Right. No, it was a whole different ballgame there.
Yeah. So roughly that whole arc, and there were many periods in there. That's a whole years-long podcast in itself covering Egyptian history, but from 3150 BC to when Upper and Lower Egypt were unified to 30 BC when the Romans came in and did what the Romans do, and
they civilized them.
Yeah, the Romans, they like doing that.
Yeah, they do.
So a lot of what I'm referring to here is my own memory and Wikipedia summaries with the citations.
Oh, good.
So going off of the tertiary source there a lot of times, but you can always go to the bottom of a Wikipedia page, and there you'll find your sources. Yeah. So if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, write in freebinpod@gmail.com. I'd love to learn something new, correct anything that I get off here.
And we do occasionally check that email.
We do check that email. It forwards to my regular work email.
Ooh, fan letters.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. Well, actually. Interesting. I mean, ancient Egypt is interesting in how it ended up, because it didn't just get squished, so much. It's kind of like, you remember in the 80s, there was Chuck E. Cheese and there was Showbiz Pizza. And
I remember Chuck E. Cheese. I'm not sure I remember Showbiz.
Well, they were rivals for a while, and actually Chuck E. Cheese went under and got bought out by Showbiz Pizza. But because the brand was so strong of Chuck E. Cheese, it was iconic, it was beloved, Showbiz Pizza let their own brand fall off, and they went all in on the Chuck E. Cheese brand. So they converted their Showbiz Pizza locations into Chuck E. Cheese because they figured with their business acumen and with the love for the Chuck E. Cheese brand, they had more to gain by claiming the legacy of Chuck E. Cheese than by stamping it out.
Yeah. So the mouse won.
Yeah. So going by, it seems like a tangent, but I feel like it's not.
No, I can see where you're headed.
They kind of got, as they waned in power and got invaded and colonized and absorbed into other empires, the brand of Kemet, of ancient Egypt, was so strong that even the places that took over kind of kept things going.
Right.
Because you don't want to be... Those statues and stuff are too cool to...
I was going to say, it's hard to move the Sphinx and the pyramids. They kind of made their mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, a little bit of a digression.
Yep, I get it.
Right. And also, due to their unique mortuary practices, the ancient Egyptians even left us a plethora of actual preserved rich people to view, study, and make fun Brendan Fraser movies about.
That's right, which I'm all for.
And it's one of these preserved rich people that we'll be discussing today.
Okay.
But I want to start by discussing in general terms the society and legal system within which our story takes place.
Okay.
Ancient Egyptian society. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was dun-dun-dun.
Oh,
I was just giving you an intro.
Thank you.
Dun-dun-dun.
And I ruined it.
I'm not doing it again.
Drinking my red juice. Ancient Egyptian society was highly stratified. At the top, you had the pharaoh, of course, and the nobility, who owned most of the land. Below them, the priests, engineers, and physicians. Below them, the scribes and government officials. Below them, skilled craftsmen and artists whose labor was owned by the state. Below them, farmers, the majority of the population, who worked fields which were owned by the nobility, and the state owned all the agricultural products. Farmers also paid taxes in the form of a sort of statute labor system wherein they worked on public works projects during the part of the year that the Nile flooded the fields. There was slavery in ancient Egypt, but not in the way the movies often show it. It also didn't resemble the system of race-based chattel slavery that was in place in the United States until the end of the Civil War. That is probably more familiar to us when we use that word. But in ancient Egypt, slavery was not necessarily a permanent condition. Slaves could buy and sell their freedom, and one's status as a slave was not based on any immutable characteristics. We also need to talk about the legal system. We don't actually have surviving legal codes from ancient Egypt, but we do have legal documents and judicial records that paint a picture of a justice system, or ma'at, that was focused on conflict resolution and agreements for the most part. A lot of sounds like civil case type of stuff. Right. Small cases were presided over by local councils called kenbet, and the pharaoh, being the absolute head of the judicial system, he, she, or the vizier presided over major crimes in the great kenbet. This would be kind of sort of like federal cases. Okay. Right? Go straight up to the pharaoh. Right. It's worth keeping in mind that in many cases, judge and prosecution were pretty much the same thing, and confessions could be extracted under torture. Punishments ranged from fines to impalement, and punishments could extend to the family members of the convicted as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so...
That's a tough system.
Yeah, that's going to come up. So, yeah, I kind of look at, where we'd fall in this society, right? We're like... We're municipal. We kind of might fall under that scribe thing. I'm trying to figure out if we would get a mummy, right?
Oh. Well, I'd like to think so.
I would like to think that would be cool. I mean, this was largely, I feel like the upper classes are where you get like...
Well, certainly the upper classes got the pyramids.
But yeah, I think it was more common like after like the Greeks and the Romans took over, it became more like more people were getting some kind of that sort of burial. I feel like maybe we'd get a coffin with an inscription, but one of those where you open it and there's just a skeleton in there and you're like, oh.
Yeah, no mummy.
No. Public Works might, though, because engineers were
right. Those guys.
Imhotep was a civil engineer, the guy who designed the first pyramid, and he was one of the few flesh and blood people to come to be revered as a deity. He was worshipped as a deity. So they loved their civil engineers. Imhotep. And his name got applied to the
Sorry,
movie,
every time I hear that, it's like Imhotep. Sorry. I digress.
So there you go. Like, Brian would probably get a good...
Right.
It looks like he's just sleeping, kind of.
Yeah. Oh, he looks good.
Yeah.
Except they sucked his brains out.
Yeah, he's still got his hair. It looks fantastic. Okay, I'm getting off topic.
All right, back to it.
All right. So this brings us to the year 1881.
Ooh.
When a cache of more than 50 Egyptian royals and their belongings was discovered near Deir el-Bahari in the Theban necropolis.
Okay.
Among the mummies found was one designated Unknown Man E from the 20th dynasty. He died around 1155 BC or BCE, and he looks just awful. Would you like to see Unknown Man E?
Oh, sure. I've seen mummies before.
Here's who we're talking about.
Aw. Oh, yeah, he doesn't look too good.
If you know your mummies, you'll see that this is all wrong. His arms are loose, resting kind of just in his lap. His hair is all messed up. Most disconcertingly, his head is slumped over a bit and his mouth is hanging wide open. He looks like he's screaming. Sometimes he's referred to as the screaming mummy.
Is he unwrapped?
Yes.
Was he wrapped?
He was wrapped in goat skin, which is the wrong way to do it. Like the deliberately wrong way to do it. His organs were in place.
So he didn't get Coptic bottles or jars. He didn't get those. They didn't. Yeah,
they did it very wrong on purpose. He was preserved, but not mummified in a traditional, respectful, dignified way. The good news is, this alarming condition of the body has nothing to do with the manner of his death. If you've been around a recently deceased body, been with a loved one during the dying process, you know that is something your body just kind of does unless and until a mortician intervenes. Your jaw tends to hang open.
Right.
And it really takes a lot of work, both back in ancient Egyptian times and in modern embalming practices, to create a peaceful kind of sleeping appearance of a corpse. And more so when, time passes, muscles dry out, contract, break down, we do interesting things.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that he died an unpleasant death, that he looks that way, which sometimes it's taken to be. The bad news is he did probably die a pretty unpleasant death.
Okay.
Though he got off easier than some others in the same situation.
Okay.
So DNA analysis and other contextual evidence suggests that this body is that of a prince known as Pentawere, a son of Pharaoh Ramses III, and the pharaoh's, what I found, quote, secondary wife, Ta. I think looks like she was not pleased about being a secondary wife. And also the fact that her son was not in line for the throne.
Right.
That would be Ramesses IV.
Right.
So Ta was the mastermind of what's known as the Harem Conspiracy.
No way.
Yes.
Oh, man.
To kill Pharaoh Ramesses III and place her own son on the throne.
This guy.
We know of this plot because the trial was recorded in the judicial papyrus of Turin. So,
all right then.
On the 15th day of the second month of Shemu, which is the harvest season, 1155 BC, Ta along with some other officials.
So TA is the secondary wife.
A secondary wife.
Okay.
Emergency backup.
Apparently,
queen.
Right? I think they have
complicated. Lots of lots of families, lots of scheming.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia page of conspiracies in ancient Egypt goes on a long way.
I bet it
it's
does.
like Rome, you know.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, you win or you die. One of the pantry chiefs, Pebekamen, was responsible for kind of recruiting people into this. He was also kind of a mastermind of this.
Of the Harem Conspiracy.
The Harem Conspiracy.
Okay.
The result of this was that on this day, the 15th day of the second month of Shimu, 1155 BC, Ramesses III's throat was cut to the bone. His body is preserved respectfully, so they were able to scan and see that how he was killed. And there's some evidence that he kind of survived the initial attack for a while, but he died within a few days.
Yeah.
And the trial was presided over by Ramesses IV in his father's name. A little bit of a conflict of interest there, maybe, right?
On all counts.
Yeah, all kinds of conflict.
Not just the murder victim, but the murder victim's son and future pharaoh.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They didn't stand a chance.
No. So, as a result of this trial, and of course the judicial papyrus of Turin is still there to review, 28 people were executed. I've read that they were burned and their ashes thrown into the street. But some of the nobility, including Pentaware, were allowed to kill themselves rather than be executed by the state. There's like this really dead...
You die or you die.
Right. There's a little, what do you... Yeah.
You get to choose the way
You get
that's
to
still
choose.
dead.
There's this kind of deadpan line in the papyrus that like loosely translated is like, we left him where he was and he died there. That was kind of the, you know what, we're not going to do the whole state execution. We're just going to leave this stuff here and leave the room.
Right.
And you know what to do.
Do the honorable thing or whatever. Okay, gotcha.
4 people just had their ears and noses cut off. Slap on the wrist.
Okay. The equivalent of.
Yeah. For a conspiracy to kill the pharaoh.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There is no actual record of Queen TA's sentence, so we don't know what happened to her.
She became a third wife.
Maybe, tertiary wife from now on.
Right. Lost her rank.
So it was an ugly thing.
Yeah.
And it's one of many just, these big weird.
It didn't seem well thought out.
No, I don't know.
Did they not understand the system, or did they? What were they planning to do in Ramses IV? I mean, because there was no automatic like, oh well, my son gets to be on the throne. Well, no, I mean we already knew the line of succession,
right?
So there's not a lot of thinking going on there. Maybe
I'm not sure. That's a really good question, and a thing like this, and I wonder if because the way they write about Pebekamen Pebekamen and how he was kind of pamphleteering around, it may have been that this was intended to be something more like a coup, and that they could pull in enough of the court and the military forces to side with Queen TA and
the dead
prince, to rally behind him and establish a new line of succession.
Yeah. Huh. Those rarely work.
Yeah. It's a gamble.
Yeah, it is, especially because the Egyptians tend to think of their pharaoh as a god, and so I mean, there's some problematic issues with that all around. But to go against that as one of his aides or even the army, I mean, that's That's high risk.
Yeah.
There'd have to be a good reason.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah.
But more high risk.
Because, you get you're lucky if you just get your ears and your nose cut off.
Yeah. Walking out of there, no nose, no ears. Just like, whew, that was close.
Yeah. I mean,
man, that could have gone real bad.
Anyway, back to the story, because I know there's more to this about how it ties into being a library.
Yes, it does. So, unknown man E, we are able to test with modern technology. He shares half his autosomal DNA with Ramesses III. And so we know this was the son of Ramses III, and he was buried in this undignified way. So we're pretty sure it's Pentawere. But here's the reason this topic in this case fascinates me. Pentawere is not his name.
Oh.
His name was redacted from all official records and court histories.
Right.
Pentawere is a pseudonym used for the purposes of the trial. He was buried in a goat skin, like we talked about, within an uninscribed coffin, and he was not properly embalmed. Although he was, he's still he's intact.
Well, dry desert sand will do that.
So beyond knowledge of his crime, his identity was and remains entirely erased. His name, which was very important, it had religious significance to preserve not only the body, but the name of a person in living memory. So the state effectively made him disappear, but also by the same acts preserved down to his actual body the knowledge that they had done so. They never let the world forget that they had erased this man.
Oh.
So now, thousands of years later, we can look this man in the face and be ourselves subject to the power of a long dead state that tells us still that we will never know his name. So the power of a government record, a court record, to both preserve and destroy, almost in a single act, is really fascinating and terrible and wonderful things that come about from what we record and what we forget, and what we tell others we are making them forget. It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to put that into words, but it's it's petty and it's
it's
weird,
it's like it wasn't enough that they left him there to take his own life, but then they were like, and in addition to this, we're going to disappear you. But we're going to make sure everybody knows that we have the power to make you disappear.
It's not as simple as going in and tearing down the statue or chiseling off the previous pharaoh you disagreed with. It's preserving the destruction. Which is just oof.
That's
And so I don't know. I just I found when I learned of this story, I just kind of found myself sitting with that and the implications of that. So as interesting as I think that is as a case, as a story of records and memory and what we remember and what we forget and what we try to destroy. I do want to end the story here before we talk however much we may want to on a human note. And I want us to consider that the prince, who we can only know as Pentawere, was only about 19 years old when he died. So again, this was a highly stratified society, and as a member of the royal family, in which these sorts of conspiracies and kind of court jockeying for position, that was just the way of life. So as a member of the royal family, this kid, powerful and privileged though he was, probably had very little say in the trajectory of his life. And he was, as far as we know, and as far as we can trust contemporary records, pushed to participate in this conspiracy by others, by older adults, including his own mother. And he was part of a system that was beyond the ability of any one person to change, and from which he likely could not even abstain, lest he himself be, bumped off or pushed aside by some other plot, by some other noble to gain influence if there was instability at that time. So it's easy to fall victim to the historian's fallacy and apply modern perspectives and motivations to the people and societies of the past. I don't want to do that too much here. But I think it's equally easy to lapse into a mythologized view of history and to forget that these people were real and not characters in some costume drama. Since prehistory, people have been people, and whether painting on cave walls in France or running a software company in Kyoto, we're all the same animals with the same brains and the same feelings, though our tools and cultural environments may differ and change. So this kid got less time on Earth than even half the time either of us have. And he's spent the last several thousand years in this unfortunate state.
Right.
Because of a situation he found himself in as a 19-year-old. So.
Right. Who had the right bloodline.
Yeah. And also happened to be the judge. And that's what a coincidence.
Right.
So Ramesses IV may have succeeded in preventing us from ever knowing this kid's name, but he can't prevent us from caring if we want to.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, and I think of everything as a novel, and you kind of wonder, obviously he had a mother who was eager for power. And since she could not herself probably figure out how to get into the line of Pharaoh and be Pharaoh herself, because we do know there are women who were pharaohs, they're few and far between, but they were there. And so she had a power play, that I've got this kid who's provable. I mean, not now we prove it, but back then I'm sure that it was documented that he was the son of the Pharaoh. Just albeit a little bit down the line. Secondary prince after a secondary wife. So you got to think, did he know? I mean, how old was Ramses IV?
That's a good question.
Probably not much older. And here we are with a half brother who knows he is going to be the next Pharaoh. And, we can speculate a lot and find that entertaining, but you're right. I mean, these were people who were in a culture and in a place where this kind of intrigue was the norm. I mean, look at who they married. Brother and sister would marry because it would secure the throne. Women were there were several pharaohs who they just erased from history because they didn't believe the next generation or the next pharaoh. No, I didn't like that guy. We're going to get rid of him. Akhenaten. Yeah, right. And so, it's a fascinating thing. I grew up wanting to be an Egyptian archaeologist. That was until I realized that I maybe didn't want to be in the desert. But I just find it fascinating. And I read a lot of stories and history about that time. And it's just an intriguing culture. But like you said, Game of Thrones. I mean, it really was who has the most power, who has the most people behind them. And, because being Pharaoh was a big deal. But boy, some of them didn't last long.
Yeah. I pulled up the Wikipedia page for Ramesses IV. According to this, and there's the source. You always want to look for your source.
That's
there. Right. Ramesses IV became crown prince when his elder brother, Amenhotep, died aged 15 in 1164 BC.
Okay.
When Ramesses IV was 12. So he was 12 in 1164. So yeah, he was young, and I can't do simple math in my head.
What was it?
So he was 12 in 1164. So he would have been 22 in 1154. So he was like 23. 21. Sorry, I mixed up my ADs and my BCs.
Yeah.
So it was a 23-year-old, 21-year-old. I know. Sentenced to his 19-year-old brother.
Think about that. I mean, yeah, he tried to take over the throne, but I guess the viciousness of that, they burned them all. And didn't they have jail space? I mean,
yeah, I don't know that they did. I don't know that incarceration was something that.
No, it was.
It
was, yeah.
Okay.
Because if like you said, maybe he was alive for 3 or 4 days, they had to have a place to put him. To put the people who were accused.
A good old dungeon somewhere.
Probably very much like a dungeon. I mean, I would imagine. But yeah, I think so. I think they had, I think there are sources that we could probably find that indicate that they had jails.
Cindy is correct. According to the University of Oxford's online Ancient Egypt in Introduction class, prisons existed, but only as places of detention while punishment was decided.
Or slavery. I mean, they did a lot of that where, you're going to serve, your 7-year sentence as a slave or whatever. So but I don't think they just murdered everyone else.
No, you couldn't keep that up.
No,
really.
that would be like.
You want to have the perception of that, but you really can't keep the numbers up if you actually do it.
Yeah. So, but there are some, I think other sources would, if you really looked into it.
Thank you for going with me on this.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's an interesting thought. It's something to think about in terms of how we keep records, how we treat people. Does everyone, the question, he deserved his moment in history too, not to be known as unknown number 5 or whatever.
Whereas most of us don't get our names written anywhere, and we're just included in the general description of an ancient civilization and what most people did.
Well, but I think, our modern, I think of our genealogy society that does such good work and our cemeteries. And we are recorded though.
Yeah.
But our deeds and our, whether good or bad, many times go unnoticed or unrecorded. But there's so many people in this world that hopefully.
Yeah, there's like 10
whole people. Hopefully we're leaving behind a legacy with our own families that means something, that is meaningful. I certainly came from that kind of family. We didn't do anything big and famous, but I have, we have memories, and I think that's valuable. Should they be recorded somewhere? I don't know. Maybe.
We're here.
I know. I was going to say, great segue.
We had to be, our legacy is each other.
Yeah.
And we all build on the past and pass down what we know.
Right. And, on that note, if there's something you want to say, we have the means to help you say that.
Yes.
And that's a project that maybe you might not know about. And what is it called again?
Yes. The our archive of stories,
right?
Lincoln County Voices.
There you go.
Which I need to upload another batch of records.
Because you can come and if you have something to say about what's happening now in our world, or if you have something you want to talk about and be recorded in perpetuity, it's there. And I think that's good. I think that's why people write books. And I think that's why people do podcasts. And, is that your voice might be heard by somebody 200 years in the future. And they go, oh man, that was pretty good ancient wisdom.
Or maybe
not.
Someone will start a petition to drink your bone juice.
That's right. You never know. That may be good nutritional value in there. I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
I think it turned out to be sewage.
Oh, yeah. I can't imagine that. That just seems so weird. Stop it with the mummy voice.
All right. Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll see you all next week.
Bye.
The Free Bin is a production of the Toledo Public Library, which is part of the Lincoln County Library District in beautiful Lincoln County, Oregon. Original music and editing by Harrison Baker. That's me. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of any organizations they represent. Good night.